Hi all, this is a video on assembling the Fremo module for an HO gauge track. Hopefully I will show some of the details that might interest you in its assembly and just to walk through how it all goes together. Have fun. First up is the assembly of the legs. Here's L1B, L1A, CB1, D1, and CB2, all laid out, ready to be screwed together. One of the things to be cautious of is the screws that they supplied for this part of the project actually will poke all the way through, and you need to provide a different screw or cut the tip of the screw off after it's been inserted, or use the screw once and remove it and then grind it off with a Dremel tool. I'll show that in more detail when I turn it over. As per the instructions, we're assembling legs LA1 with screws provided through the drilled holes. You'll notice also that there are red register lines for each one of the boards, and you should line up the parts with that as you put them in. I'm going to turn this part over and zoom in, but you'll see that there's a screw poking out there which needs to be ground off. You see that little dot sticking there? That's the part that sticks out and would be very unhappy if you snagged your finger on it. So therefore, I will back these screws out and grind off the tips before I put them back in. There is the first leg assembled. We'll do the same thing for the second leg. But in the meantime, I'm going to remove all these screws that I put in, grind off the tips, and then replace them off camera. One last thing to do, and that is to check for squareness. I found assembling with the pre-drilled screws holes makes this thing dead on square. And with that, we'll move on to the second leg, and we'll do that off camera. But there is one thing that I'll mention. All the screw holes on the second set of legs goes into a much thicker piece of wood rather than the thin side of the wood. So we don't have to worry about grinding screws anymore. This is the only section where you have that issue. If any of these screws did poke through, you'll still have to grind them off, but I think I've ground them down far enough that they won't poke through or cause snags. It's really hard when you get your finger caught on one of those. We're here assembling the second set of legs, and it's very important to note the orientation of these parts, which is different from the other one. Whereas the other one, the parts were laid flat against the inside like that. These parts are placed on top, which makes the screw problem go away since we're going into a nice long screw. I will put this together off camera and then show the results when it's all done. Also note the red lines, register lines, which show exactly where each board should go. The red lines are very precisely drawn with probably some of the laser device, as well as all the holes being drilled with some sort of CNC type of device, or at least a jig, so that all the holes come out in exactly the right place when this is put together. One of the nice features about this kit is that, as I said, all the pieces fit together absolutely perfect. There's absolutely no room for errors when you put it together. And here is the second leg assembled and squared. It's a good idea. Another thing to think about is placing one screw on each one of the horizontal pieces before you put in the second screw on the large horizontal piece. This gives you an opportunity to square this, whereas the other set of legs didn't need this. The horizontal piece is butted up against another board, whereas here they're free floating. And it's very important that you do get the sway brace in the right position, which is the other issue. The instructions show the sway brace going in the other direction. Doesn't make that much difference as long as you use the screw holes that have been provided. Placing the sway brace into those screw holes into those holes makes the second leg square up very nicely. Next up will be the end boards, which are shown over here. And it'll be important to orientate those in exactly the position that they recommend. This is the part where we attach the legs to the ends, and basically what we've done is we've flipped the legs around from the way we had assembled them before. Notice the holes that are not poking through on any of these, and we're going to place the screws in. I'm going to use, I've pre-waxed the screws already, so we'll proceed with screwing these on. The holes are pre-drilled. You just have to go ahead and careful you don't want to cam these out because these are tiny screws. I've started some of them already off camera. And basically we'll do the other ends the same way. You can see how that works now. When we get ready to position everything, we'll be positioning the legs together for the top, which is the next operation, and I'll show that. Well, we've managed to put the ends on the legs. We've assembled the legs. The next part is a little bit more complicated in the sense that you have to follow the directions pretty close. Watch all the colored markings so that the colored markings match. They have the red dots matching the red dots, and so on, the black dots, the black dots. I'm going to try to do something a little different with this unit. The first one I built, I was not pleased with the way the top set inside once the sides were screwed to the ends. So we're going to try to put the center brace to the sides first and screw that on, and then loosely screw on the ends so that we can make adjustments to the position of the squareness of the frame so that the top fits in nice and snug against the sides and the ends. Anyway, that's the next part. So as I said, we're going to try to attach these pieces first, only because I'm trying to keep the sides in position, and then we'll do a dry fit to see how everything goes together. For now, I'm just going to get these screws started. They do provide a hole, and when that screw comes poking through, we'll position this so that it's right by the red marks, right there. And one thing that's nice about using drywall screws is they do tend to I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this one so you can see what we're doing. So attach the other one. And as I said, these are going to just be attached loosely, but so that the board is tight against the piece, so that we can do a dry fit of the top and see how it fits. That will do it. Screwing this into an end grain is never the best way to go, but that's what we're trying to do here. Meantime, get this nice and straight. as was pointed out, the color markings are important. They're green there, red there. That signifies that we do have the corners in the right place. Also, red ones there and green ones there. I'll pull back a little bit so you can see more. And at this point, we'll try dry fitting the top just to see how everything fits together. I might take a note here that the top is marked with red center lines for the track and the center of the unit. So and sure enough, that fits beautifully. Now on this one, which is something I found on the first one, the whole unit is slightly racked, as there is a larger gap here and here and here actually. So it may be that it's just not tight enough yet. But once it gets tight, it should fit very nice. I think at this point, if we can keep these corners together, we'll get one screw in here and see how that works. Also, take note that I have raised the whole unit up on some other pieces of wood just to keep everything in alignment. Now this is where you want to make sure that you're tight against the ends before you screw this home. Any of you have a set of picture frame clamps, it's very helpful for this. It'll keep everything nice and tight. Now we'll make this joint tight. Also, if you had a set of bar clamps long enough to clamp this together, it would be great also. Now this one's got a gap at the bottom, which I don't care for that much. So we'll do the top screw on this one first. And now we'll do the other sides. Get one last screw for the other corner. At this point, we've got the whole unit almost completely assembled. Also, take note, you can see in the camera, but there are red center lines on top. The unit I had did not have those red center lines. So this is a plus on this particular unit. If you don't have them, you want to add them after the whole unit is completely put together. Now this one's, we may be able to put in the two screws. This one fit together very nicely here. Helps put it in the hole and not in the same screw hole. with this unit in this position, I'm fairly satisfied with the way the top has fit in. It's fairly tight. We do have to position the sides a little tighter, but we can do that once we remove the top. One of the things you want to do with these cross braces, these horizontal cross braces that eventually you'll want to feed wires through them. So here we are drilling the holes before we put them in. I've set them up so that they're 6 inches and 9 inches from the end so that they don't interfere with the screws from the top. And we're going to go ahead and drill this one hole so you can see at least that much of the operation. And there it is. And I'll continue to drill 3 more holes in this off camera. Here's a added tip. You don't need to do this, but if you desire to do it, is to staple a Ziploc bag, and I've got it positioned upside down so it doesn't interfere with any of the cross members or the legs. And I just stapled the bottom of it on so it won't go anywhere, and stapled the open top. And then this way, parts such as all these little thumb screws can be put in there, and this bag can be sealed up so that they are not lost in the process of transport. Anyway, at this point we're ready to attach the top, but before we do, we'll put in those side braces, the horizontal braces I mean, and they screw in from the end, and make sure they're in the right spot. At this point, that's what we'll be doing. I'll do that off camera. It's pretty obvious which way everything has to go. Again, the screw holes are provided, which makes this really nice. Make sure the top edge here is flush so that now the top will be screwed to this piece, which will create a really nice solid base to put a track on. If anything, the whole system is probably a little overbuilt, which is good because it's got to be able to move around and have transport. So that's really good. So we're as solid as it is. Once the top is put in, this unit is almost complete, with the exception of setting it up and seeing how it works. And we'll do that as soon as we get a few screws into the top. And here is the sway brace added. You'll notice there are colored lines and for fitting that piece. Also, you really can't go wrong. You have to put the red dot with the red dot, as you can see there, tightening this thumbnail up. And same thing with color coding on the other end. This one's got the black dot or the green dot with the green dot. And that is the whole piece assembled. I'll put it up in just a moment. And there's the whole unit fully assembled. Walk around a little bit. I haven't put all the screws in the top. This obviously must be the front because the sway brace should go in the back, but it doesn't necessarily have to go that way. There is a few other little details. There's this piece, which I have no idea what it's for, but you can attach it. I think there's a thumbnail screw to attach it down here. It attaches here, and I think it's to make connections easier, something to that effect. Also, they tell you to take out CB1 and CB3. I'm not sure I know why you take it off, but I will take them off now that the whole thing is assembled. And I'll make sure all the screws are flush, which this one is not, and make sure that we have a screw in every location, and that the screws are flush on the top. As you can see, the top really fits very nicely. So that's the whole assembly.